The morning air was cold and heavy near the river as water rushed loudly between rocks and broken branches. Tom the ranger stood still on the riverbank, watching the strong current with sharp eyes. He had worked in this forest for many years, and he knew the river well, but today something felt different. The sound of water carried fear instead of peace. A sudden movement caught his attention near the center of the river. A large brown horse was struggling in the water, its legs trapped between slippery stones. The horse tried to lift itself, but every movement made the water pull harder. Its breathing was fast, and its eyes were wide with panic. Tom's heart tightened. He did not think about rules or danger. He only saw a living creature that needed help. He grabbed a long rope from his bag and tied one end tightly around a thick tree. He tested the knot twice, knowing one mistake could cost him his balance. Villagers had already begun to gather behind him. Some pointed at the horse. Some whispered in worry. Others shook their heads, believing the river was too strong and the horse was already lost. No one stepped forward. Tom stepped into the cold water slowly. The river pushed against his legs, trying to knock him down. He leaned forward, moving one careful step at a time. Water soaked his boots and climbed higher with every move. The horse saw him and kicked harder, splashing water into the air. Tom raised his hand and spoke calmly, keeping his voice steady even as his body shook from the cold. He told the horse it was not alone. He told it to stay still. Something unexpected happened. The horse stopped fighting. Its breathing slowed just a little. Its eyes stayed fixed on Tom. It was as if the horse understood the sound of his voice, even if it did not know the words. Tom reached the horse and carefully touched its neck. The animal trembled, but it did not pull away. He felt the strong muscles under his hand and the fear running through its body. The river continued to push, but Tom planted his feet firmly against the stones. He worked slowly, freeing one leg at a time. Each movement took strength and patience. The water tried to pull the horse back, but Tom leaned in and guided it forward. His arms burned, and his breath grew heavy, but he did not stop. At last, the horse pulled free with a loud splash. Together, they moved toward the shallow edge of the river. When the horse reached dry ground, it collapsed onto the grass, breathing hard. The villagers released a soft cheer. Some covered their mouths in disbelief. Others wiped tears from their eyes. They believed the moment was over. Tom stepped back, exhausted and shaking, water dripping from his clothes. He watched the horse closely, ready to help again if needed. The horse slowly lifted its head and looked at him. Its eyes no longer held panic. They held something else. The horse stood up carefully and took one step forward. Then another. It did not run away. It did not turn back toward the forest. Instead, it walked straight toward Tom. The river kept flowing behind them, but no one noticed the sound anymore. Every eye was fixed on the horse as it stopped directly in front of the ranger. The horse lowered its head and gently pressed its forehead against Tom's chest. It stayed there, still and quiet. Tom froze. He had rescued many animals before, but nothing like this had ever happened. He slowly raised his hand and placed it on the horse's neck. The animal did not move away. In that silent moment, something shifted inside Tom. He felt warmth replace the cold. He felt calm replace the fear. None of them knew it yet, but this rescue had just begun a story far bigger than the river itself. The horse stayed close to Tom even after the crowd slowly began to leave the riverbank. The villagers whispered among themselves as they walked away, still shaken by what they had seen. Some looked back again and again, unsure why the horse refused to leave the ranger's side. Tom loosened the rope from the tree and wrapped it over his shoulder. His body felt heavy from the cold water, but his mind felt strangely light. He watched the horse closely, ready for it to suddenly bolt away, but it did not. The horse stood calmly, its head low, its breathing slow and steady. Tom took a careful step back. The horse followed. He took another step. The horse followed again. It was not tied. It was not forced. It simply chose to stay. Tom led the horse along a narrow forest path toward the ranger station. Leaves crunched softly under their feet. Birds fluttered from tree to tree as if watching the pair pass by. The forest felt quiet and respectful, like it was holding its breath. When they reached the station, Tom opened the wooden gate. He expected the horse to hesitate, but it walked inside without fear. He filled a large bucket with clean water and placed it near the fence. The horse drank slowly, lifting its head often to look at Tom, as if checking that he was still there. Tom brought out some feed and placed it on the ground. The horse ate carefully, not rushing, not greedy. After eating, it stood near the fence and waited. Tom sat on a bench nearby, rubbing his hands together to warm them. He studied the horse more closely now. There were small marks on its legs and sides, signs that it had been on its own for some time. A worn leather strap hung loosely around its body. This horse belonged to someone. It had a past. As the afternoon passed, Tom noticed something unusual. The horse would not rest unless Tom was in sight. When Tom stepped inside the station, the horse paced slowly. When he came back out, it relaxed again. That night, Tom stayed late. He could not bring himself to leave the horse alone. He brought a blanket and sat near the fence as darkness fell over the forest. The sounds of insects filled the air. The river could still be heard in the distance, calmer now, softer. As Tom sat there, memories began to surface. Years ago, his younger brother Ben had been swept away by a sudden flood while fishing near another river. Tom had tried to help, but the water had been too strong. Since that day, rivers had filled him with quiet fear. Saving the horse had forced him to step into that fear again. Sitting there now, he realized something had changed. The fear was still there, but it no longer controlled him. The horse walked over and stood beside him. It lowered its head and rested it gently against Tom's shoulder. The weight was warm and steady. Tom did not pull away. He closed his eyes and let the moment happen. For the first time in many years, Tom felt a sense of peace. Not because the past was gone, but because he had faced it and survived. The night grew colder. Tom stood and brought the horse into a sheltered area near the station. He made sure it was comfortable and safe. Before leaving, he placed his hand on the horse's neck and spoke softly. He told it that it would be okay. The horse looked at him with calm eyes. It did not step back. It did not turn away. It simply stood there, trusting him. Tom went home late that night, his clothes still damp, his body tired. Yet his heart felt lighter than it had in years. He kept thinking about the way the horse had followed him, the way it had rested its head on his shoulder. The next morning, Tom returned early. He expected the horse to be restless or anxious, but it was standing quietly, waiting. When it saw him, it stepped forward as if greeting an old friend. Tom smiled without realizing it. He brought fresh water and food and checked the horse's legs again. They were healing well. As the sun rose higher, Tom knew he would need to find the horse's owner. But deep inside, he also knew this horse had entered his life for a reason. Neither of them understood it fully yet, but their paths had crossed for more than just a rescue. Something unseen had tied them together, and the story was far from over. Morning light slowly filled the forest as Tom walked toward the ranger station. The air felt fresh, and the sound of birds echoed between the trees. He carried a quiet excitement inside him, mixed with curiosity. He wondered how the horse had spent the night and whether it would still be calm. As soon as Tom reached the gate, the horse lifted its head. It walked forward with steady steps and stopped close to him. There was no fear in its movement. There was only recognition. Tom checked the horse again, brushing dirt from its coat and examining its legs. The cuts looked better, and the swelling had gone down. He felt relieved. He spoke softly while working, even though no one else was around. Talking to the horse felt natural, like talking to an old friend. Later that day, Tom decided to ride into the nearby village to ask if anyone was missing a horse. He left the horse resting in the shaded area with enough food and water. As he walked away, he noticed the horse watching him closely. It did not cry out or move. It simply waited. The village was small, with simple houses and narrow paths. Tom spoke to shop owners, farmers, and elders sitting outside their homes. Some shook their heads. Some said they had heard rumors of a horse lost during recent storms. One old woman mentioned a family living near the hills who had been searching for days. Tom listened carefully. He thanked everyone and turned back toward the forest. As he walked, his thoughts stayed on the horse. He wondered how long it had been alone and how it had survived the strong river. When Tom returned, the horse was standing exactly where he had left it. As soon as it saw him, it stepped forward. Tom felt a small smile form on his face. That afternoon, dark clouds began to gather. The wind grew stronger, and leaves danced across the ground. Tom felt a familiar tightness in his chest. Storms near the river always brought back memories he tried to keep buried. The horse sensed the change. It walked closer to Tom and stood beside him. Its presence was calm and steady. Tom rested his hand on its neck and took a deep breath. The fear did not disappear, but it softened. Rain began to fall slowly. Tom guided the horse into the shelter near the station. Thunder rolled in the distance. The horse did not panic. It stood quietly, trusting Tom's lead. As the storm continued, Tom sat nearby, listening to the rain hit the roof. His mind drifted back to the past. He remembered standing helplessly as the river had taken his brother. He remembered the guilt that followed him for years. But this time felt different. He was not powerless now. He had stepped into the river. He had saved a life. The horse moved closer and rested its head gently against Tom's arm. The simple touch grounded him. He placed his hand on the horse's neck and stayed there, breathing slowly. When the storm passed, the forest felt clean and renewed. Sunlight broke through the clouds, painting the trees in gold. Tom stood and walked outside. The horse followed, matching his pace. That evening, Tom noticed something else unusual. The horse reacted strongly whenever the river came into view. It did not panic, but it grew alert, ears forward, eyes focused. It was not fear. It was awareness. Tom realized the horse was not just a victim of the river. It was a survivor that understood danger deeply. As the sky turned orange and pink, Tom sat near the riverbank at a safe distance. He watched the water flow calmly now. The horse stood beside him, looking at the river as well. Tom felt a sense of understanding between them. They had both faced the river and lived. They had both carried silent scars. As night approached, Tom made a decision. He would not rush to give the horse away. He would find the owner, but he would also make sure the horse was ready. Some bonds needed time. The horse turned its head and looked at Tom, as if listening. Tom smiled softly. Far away, unseen by either of them, someone was searching the forest paths with hope and worry in their heart. The paths were slowly drawing closer, and the moment of truth was coming nearer with every passing hour. The next morning arrived with soft light and quiet wind. Tom woke early and walked outside the ranger station. The forest felt calm after the storm. Dew covered the grass, and the river flowed gently in the distance. The horse stood near the fence, waiting as always. When it saw Tom, it stepped forward and lowered its head slightly. Tom greeted it with a gentle touch and checked its legs once more. The wounds had healed well, and the horse stood strong and steady. Later that morning, a distant sound reached Tom's ears. It was the sound of footsteps and a human voice calling softly. Tom turned toward the forest path and watched carefully. Soon, a man appeared between the trees. He was older, with gray hair and tired eyes. His clothes were dusty, and his face showed both worry and hope. He stopped suddenly when he saw the horse. His hands began to shake. The man took a few slow steps forward. He spoke the horse's name quietly, almost afraid to believe what he was seeing. The horse lifted its head and looked at him. For a long moment, neither moved. Then the horse let out a soft sound and walked toward the man. The man dropped to his knees, tears filling his eyes. He placed his hands on the horse's neck and pressed his forehead against it. Tom stood back and watched in silence. He felt a tightness in his chest but did not interrupt. He knew this moment belonged to them. The man introduced himself as Will. He explained that the horse had been with his family for many years. During a recent flood, his young granddaughter Rose had fallen into rising water. The horse had pulled her to safety before anyone else could reach her. After that day, another storm had struck. The horse had broken free during the chaos and disappeared into the forest. They had searched everywhere. Days passed with no sign. Will had almost lost hope. Tom listened carefully. Everything began to make sense. The strength of the horse. The calm in danger. The deep awareness near the river. Rose soon appeared behind Will, holding a small flower in her hand. She walked slowly toward the horse and smiled. The horse bent its head gently toward her. She laughed softly and placed the flower near its mane. Tom felt warmth spread through him. This horse was not just brave. It was kind. Will thanked Tom with a deep voice filled with emotion. He said the forest needed rangers like him. Tom nodded quietly, unsure what to say. As the moment came for Will to lead the horse away, something unexpected happened. The horse stopped and turned its head back toward Tom. It did not move. Will paused, confused. He gently pulled again, but the horse stayed still. Its eyes remained on Tom. Tom felt his throat tighten. He walked forward slowly and placed his hand on the horse's neck. He spoke softly, telling it that its family was waiting and that it was safe to go. The horse leaned into his touch for a moment. Then it stepped forward and followed Will. Before leaving, the horse turned back once more. It lowered its head toward Tom, just as it had done by the river. The moment was short but powerful. Will and Rose walked down the forest path, the horse beside them. Tom stood watching until they disappeared from sight. The forest felt quieter after they left. Tom returned to the station, feeling both empty and full at the same time. That afternoon, Tom walked alone to the riverbank. He stood at a safe distance and watched the water move over the stones. The fear that once lived inside him was no longer strong. It had been replaced by respect and understanding. He realized that saving the horse had also helped him heal. Some wounds do not show on the body. Some heal only through courage and connection. As the sun lowered, Tom headed back to the station. He knew his life would continue as before, but something inside him had changed forever. Far away, the horse walked calmly with its family, carrying its own memories of the river and the ranger who had stepped into danger without hesitation. Their paths had crossed for a reason. And though they would not walk side by side again, the bond formed by courage and trust would remain, strong and unbroken. Days passed after the horse left, and life at the ranger station slowly returned to its normal rhythm. Tom woke early each morning, checked the forest paths, and listened to the sounds of birds and flowing water. Everything looked the same, yet nothing felt the same inside him. The river no longer filled him with quiet fear. When he stood near it now, he felt respect instead of pain. The memory of the rescue stayed clear in his mind, not as danger, but as proof that fear could be faced and overcome. One quiet morning, Tom walked down the familiar trail toward the riverbank. The sun was just rising, spreading soft light across the water. The river moved calmly, gentle and steady. Tom stood there for a long time, breathing slowly. For years, this place had reminded him of loss. Now it reminded him of courage. As he turned to leave, a sound behind him made him stop. Hoof steps touched the earth softly. Tom turned around, unsure of what he would see. The horse stood at the edge of the trees. Its coat shone in the morning light. It looked strong and healthy. For a moment, Tom thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. Then he saw Will and Rose walking slowly behind the horse. They smiled when they saw him. Tom felt his heart lift. He walked forward, careful and calm. The horse stepped toward him and stopped close, just as it had before. Rose laughed softly and waved. Will explained that they were passing through the area and wanted to visit one last time. The horse had stopped walking when it sensed the river and refused to move until it came here. Tom placed his hand on the horse's neck. The warmth felt familiar. The horse lowered its head and stood quietly beside him. They spent time together near the river, all at a safe distance. Rose spoke happily about school and her dreams. Will shared stories about the horse and the days they spent together on the hills. Tom listened, smiling often. He felt no sadness this time. Only gratitude. As the sun climbed higher, it was time to leave. Will thanked Tom again for saving not just the horse, but a part of their family. Rose hugged Tom tightly before stepping back. The horse lingered for a moment. It looked at Tom with calm eyes, then lowered its head gently toward him. Tom rested his forehead against the horse's neck and closed his eyes. There were no words needed. The horse turned and walked away with its family. Tom watched until they disappeared between the trees. He stood alone by the river, feeling complete. From that day on, Tom became known not just as a ranger, but as someone who faced danger with kindness. Visitors heard the story of the rescue and spoke of it with wonder. But Tom never spoke much about it. He knew the truth was simple. Courage does not come from strength alone. It comes from choosing to step forward when fear tells you to turn away. The forest continued to change with the seasons. Leaves fell. New ones grew. The river flowed on. And somewhere beyond the trees, a horse ran free, carrying the memory of a ranger who once reached into cold water and chose compassion. Some moments change lives forever. This was one of them.